Good morning, everybody. Thank you. It's my great honor to thank UGG, our presenting sponsor, and the board of directors of the film festival. Thank you. I also, since today is the last day of the festival, I need to do a special shout out to the entire staff of the Lobero Theatre and the volunteers who make it all possible. This is, as you all know, the festival is celebrating 35 years, and today we're celebrating 16 years of the women's panel. When this panel was started, there was 20 people in this theater. The following year, there was maybe 40 people in the audience. And Madelyn Hammond, who is your host for this evening, for this panel, and she is an extraordinary moderator. You'll see for yourselves. So 16 years ago, I think maybe 14 years ago, she said, Roger, let's hang it up. Let's not do this panel anymore. And I convinced her to stick around, and look at this today. We have an incredible talent with you today, and I would like for you guys to take a little peek at their work. It's my honor to introduce this incomparable group of artists. Please welcome Rosana Sullivan, director, KITBULL. Mays C. Rubeo, costume designer, JOJO Rabbit. Julia Reichert, director, American Factory. Arianne Phillips, costume designer, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Anne Morgan, makeup, BOMBSHELL. Aneta Hickinbotham, producer, CORPUS CHRISTI. Regina Graves, set decorator, The Irishman. Sarah Finn, casting director, The Lion King and Avengers Endgame. Bonnie Arnold, producer, How to Train Your Dragon 2. And please welcome for the 16th year, your moderator, Madelyn Hammond, president of Madelyn Hammond and Associates.
I love it. Thank you. Well, have a seat, lady, and pull those chairs right on up here. And I have a feeling Box Water might be a sponsor. So we have our water in case we need it. We're good. All right, how many, show of hands, how many first timers? Oh, okay, good. So then you guys, I like that a lot of people have been back, so forgive me for going through the kind of the agenda, if you will, because you may remember from past years, but I like to change it up a little bit. So here's how it's gonna go today. We're gonna start off with, because we have such an amazing panel, 9 great women, so I'm gonna start off and give you just 3 little tidbits about everybody, because who wants to hear a boring bio, right? So just a little snippet. And then we're gonna put everybody on the hot seat where they get 5 or 6 questions about their film and what they do. And then we're gonna do the fun thing you may remember for those that have been here before called our fun round robin. And then we'll take a couple of questions from the audience and then get on home. How's that? Sound good? All right. So I'm gonna start with Rosana at the end. As Roger said, nominated for Best Animated Short Film. She's a story artist, a Sparks Short director at Pixar, and we'll explain a little later what Sparks Shorts mean. She joined Pixar about 9 years ago. She's done The Good Dinosaur and Coco, just to give you a sense. She grew up in Texas and went to University of San Francisco and the Academy of Art University. And that's Rosana. Mays, nominated for Best Achievement, Costume Design.
Mayes.
Nominated for Best Achievement Costume Design. She worked with Taika Waititi on Thor Ragnarok, Avatar, World War II, Apocalypto with Mel Gibson, many, many more. Born in Mexico City. and was studying fashion and went to the LA Trade Tech College in UCLA. I like to talk about where people go because I think it's interesting, those that had kind of fell into it and those that actually studied for it. Julia, fantastic American Factory director, nominated for Best Doc Feature. It's up for DGA Tonight, Spirit Award. Julia's career has spanned, could this be 50 years?
Yep.
That's amazing. Well, I think we all deserve a little round of applause for that. Julia has done many docs. Last Truck, Closing of GM Plant, Union Maids, and her first film was called Growing Up Female. And her life partner is Steve Bogner, who she did American Factory with, and I believe your nephew Jeff
That's right.
was part of it as well.
Family affair.
It's a family affair. I like that. And everybody's still happy and gets along.
Great.
I think it's great. Arianne, nominated for Best Achievement, Costume Design. No stranger to awards, Arianne. 2 Kingsmen, A Nocturnal Animal, Single Man, and Walk the Line. 2 years ago, she also decided, I'm going to get into opera. So she designed, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right, so forgive me. Opera's not my thing, but Nico Malhi
Nico Muley was the composer.
was the composer, and it was at the Met. So that's pretty cool. It's called Marnie. Over 20 years with Madonna, so I'm sure she can tell stories, but she wouldn't give up anything. Album covers, music videos, all kinds of. Think about those crazy. So you did the.
No, that was before my time.
Oh, okay. Did you guys know what I meant? Okay. I didn't know what to call it. Also, she does a lot of stuff with brands, and she was an inaugural member of Time's Up and actually designed the pin that became the logo. Next, we have Ann Morgan, who goes by Morgan, so I love that. Why is that, by the way? Just started?
Yeah, and just kind of one of those things it fell into. When I was
Yeah.
around 18, my friends started calling me Morgan.
I love it. Okay, so anyway, we have Morgan.
Okay.
Nominated for Best Achievement in Hair. I know Roger mentioned makeup, but it's makeup and hair is the category, but you
That's right.
primarily focused on the hair.
That's right, I was the hair designer. Exactly.
You've seen her work in Gangs of New York, Walk the Line, Lemony Snicket, and what I think was the best, the first season of True Detective. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
And you will see more of her hair expertise in Top Gun Maverick, right? Or Maverick Top Gun.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, can't wait.
Yeah.
So just one little factoid about Morgan, which I think is really funny, is how many people here remember the hair in Something About Mary? I think that's pretty funny. I love that.
It's pretty funny.
Okay. Try to follow that, Aneta. So Aneta is nominated for Best International Feature Film for Corpus Christi, which you saw the great clip. She's a producing partner in Aurum Film, and she's worked with everyone from Spielberg, Roman Polanski, Anisha Holland, Martin Campbell, and we're thrilled to have her here today because we haven't ever, in the 16 years, I'm not sure how many, I don't think we've had many foreign films, so we're thrilled to have you. And then we have Regina, nominated for Best Achievement in Production Design. She's a set decorator. Her first job was with Woody Allen's Celebrity. She did Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, The Nick. She got an Emmy for that. She went to School of Interior Design, and then she kind of landed a job at, I love the name, Eclectic Encore Props. And that's where she met up with a lot of other set decorators and people that did what she does now, and I think that was a big turning point.
It was.
Yep.
Definitely.
And now we have Sarah Finn, not nominated for an Oscar. She's a rock star. The reason she's not nominated for an Oscar is because there is no category for casting. But if there was, I guarantee she'd be nominated. She has cast over 100 feature films, 100, including 22 alone just in the Marvel Universe, Black Panther, 2 billboards over Ebbing, Missouri, Crash, goes on and on. Last year, in 2019, think about what you did last year. Let me tell you what Sarah did. She cast 4 out of the top 5 grossing films: Avengers Endgame, Lion King, Spider-Man, and Captain Marvel. So that is why we have Sarah. And last but certainly not least is Bonnie Arnold, my good friend. She's nominated for Best Animated Feature for How to Train Your Dragon. She's what I call a producer's producer. In addition to the Dragon trilogy, she's either produced or been an executive overseeing Toy Story, Over the Hedge, Tarzan, Kung Fu Panda, Boss Baby. But she's also done indie film, The Last Station, and Dances with Wolves. And Bonnie, I'm so happy to have you here. Known for a long time. We're both Southerners from Atlanta. So, all right, so now, round of applause. Okay. So before we get into the questions, I want to give you some, I saw this study that came my way. It's called the celluloid ceiling. 22 years it's been going on. It's the most comprehensive study of how many women, cinematographers, directors, producers, and so forth. And here's a few interesting statistics. Okay, so for our directors on the panel, so Rosana and Julia. 2019, women comprised 13% directors that were working on the top 250 grossing films. The good news is up 8%. Right. Now, isn't that good? But Julia, better news in your area. Women accounted for more jobs in docs than they did narratives.
Oh, way more.
Way more. Really interesting. So higher employment for docs than narrative. I thought that was good. And then Bonnie for producers and Aneta, looking good. Accounted for 27%, up from 26% last year. Not that much, but it's an all-time high. So that's good. Regina, women, 23% production designers. Not great, but not bad. It's getting better, right? Wouldn't you think you're seeing more and more women in your field?
Definitely.
Yep. And then, I don't know their statistics on casting, Sarah. Well,
Cinematographers are the worst.
Yeah,
cinematographers is still like single digits. It's horrible.
Single digits, right.
Yeah.
And composers,
Oh, composers is, I think, minus.
like
Minus
1%.
something.
Yeah. Casting directors are pretty high.
Casting's pretty high?
Yeah, close to 90%.
Oh.
Female. Very, very predominantly female field.
Could that be because, yes,
They have good taste.
they have good taste, but I think because we're observant and we maybe remember faces and things like that, right? Could be. I don't know, maybe one of them.
Costume designers are 80% female, women.
Costume is 80%? Wow. So anyway, so it's getting better, and certainly because of the audience we have here today, it makes me feel very, very good. All right, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Now we're going to go through my questions. Don't get scared. I know you see the cards and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to kill myself. No, I do that in case I suddenly just forget where I am, who anybody is. I have a backup. It's really just more of that. I'm going to start with, so now we're going to ask 6 or 7 questions, make it kind of fast, but give everybody a sense of what you do and a little bit about your film. And I have to start with KITBULL. So being a cat owner, I have 2 cats, Thelma and Louise. I would show pictures, but I'll spare you. That scene with the dilated eyes, I'm telling you, if you have a cat, the eyes should win an Oscar.
I actually,
in my opinion, but-
I actually don't have a cat, and that's why I made KITBULL, because I want one.
Oh.
And my husband said that if we do win the category on Oscars night, then maybe we'll be able to get a cat.
Wow.
Fingers crossed.
I would tell your husband that you're getting a cat no matter what. Sure. So, I don't know. All right, so I have to tell you about Rosana, because this is kind of cool. So imagine this. So 9 years ago, she walks into Pixar, and you're doing storyboard on The Good Dinosaur. And now today, you're a first-time director. So amazing, short amount of time. So tell us, if you could, briefly how KITBULL came about.
It came about from being stressed out on The Good Dinosaur at the time, and being green at the studio. I really wanted to flex my own personal creative muscle, and so I started watching cat videos, as we do, and started sketching out this little kitten. And then over the years, that was in 2013, it evolved into a much more meaningful short about animal welfare and the themes of connection, isolation, and friendship. And then in 2018, Pixar started the Spark Shorts program, which is sort of like an indie, smaller budget program within the studio to find diverse voices. And they asked me if I would like to produce that short that I had been working on for many years.
And had you shown people at Pixar the short so they knew you were working on a side
Very
hustle?
small number of people, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And they came in one day and said, here's a budget, and...
Yep, 6 months, make something, and we'll see what we do with it, because there was no guarantee that I'd even see the light of day outside the studio.
Right. Wow, God, that's incredible. Well, I just wanted to say, going back to what you said about isolation and friendship, unlikely friendship, but also when I watched it, it seems like it's very timely now more than ever about 2 unlikely people having to get together to just survive. And I thought that was a pretty good thing. So did you notice it was evolving into maybe something more than a kitten sketch?
That was my hope, because I was worried that people would just see it as a glorified YouTube cat video, which it started as. But yeah, it became something more meaningful for me, just especially in the climate today, how divisive it is now.
Yeah, good. And then I want to ask you how it was for you when you became the boss. Because before you were the boss, you were working for other people.
Yes.
And then one day you get this opportunity. So did it take you a while to get used to that? Did you have a hard time?
A lot of anxiety was spent before taking the job on, but since I had a little 6-month-old son, I just didn't have a lot of time and energy to overthink it once I started the job. So, which was fortunate. At that point, I just let myself think about the short and how to make it the best thing possible. So instead of trying to put the boss pants on, I was just saying, okay, help me make this. How do we make this better?
Right. Oh, that's good. Okay. So people took direction from you easy, no problem?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And then last is, for people that might not know where to see KITBULL, if you're intrigued by a little bit of what you saw, where can they see it?
YouTube and Disney Plus.
And Disney Plus. Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
All right, I like that.
But YouTube's free, so go there first.
Well, what if they go to YouTube to watch KITBULL and then they start watching cat videos? Because that could easily happen. And once you watch it, you're going to suddenly see a lot of cat videos populate your thing. I just showed Rosana, I think I've gone too far. I bought cat emoji flannel sheets. I know. Isn't that pathetic? It is a pathetic thing.
No.
They look so cute in the ad, but when I got them, I was like, uh-oh, this is not going to go over big.
Embrace it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. All right, so next I would like to do Arianne. Yeah, I know. Okay, I want to know when you were doing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, tell us that first, who found who? Did you know Quentin? Did Quentin know you? How did you two get together? Because had you worked with him before?
No, I was a newbie, a big fan of costume designers who worked with him before. He's always on my short list. I actually was working on a movie with Jim Mangold, who Morgan and I have worked together with before. I've done a few films with him. We're working on the Patty Hearst movie, and the producer of that movie said, you better get into the costume houses and get all the 60s costumes you can for your background players, because I hear Quentin Tarantino's doing a movie set at the same time. And so I did. And that was 2018. And when Oprah made that incredible speech on the Time's Up version of Golden Globes. Shortly thereafter, Patty Hearst came out, and I think this is relevant for this audience. So Patty Hearst came out, and CNN was doing a docuseries about her story, and we were prepping a movie about her. And she made a statement against the docuseries and against the film, and it went down in one day. And I called my agent. I said, oh, my movie's over, but can you find out about Quentin Tarantino's movie? So I was lucky enough that I got an interview, and I put together quite extensive, probably the most extensive presentation, because I really wanted the job.
Wow. And by presentation, is that like a slideshow, or did you show here's what I would do, here's what kind of Hawaiian shirt I would, what's a presentation for a costume designer?
It was extensive. I had a little help from my friend Courtney Hoffman, who was the costume designer in Hateful Eight, his most recent film before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And she said, make it as experiential as possible, which was a great advice. Thank you, Courtney. And I put together a mixed CD of music from 1969. I brought some Brill cream. I bought a vintage Hawaiian shirt that in his size. And I worked about 60 hours on a giant visual lookbook, which was, that was kind of chronological as I had read the script. So it was kind of like this box that I had delivered, and I assured the producers it wasn't a bomb. It was like he should open it, and so he could have this kind of
That's great.
experience. And some sunglasses. I gave him some sunglasses, some vintage sunglasses.
Wow, I really applaud that. Being in marketing, I love when people think and do something differently. And
I was inspired by the script. The script was so incredible. It was unlike any script I'd ever read. It just read like a novel, just so richly. I really learned about Quentin in that moment. He has such a specific vernacular and style. We all know how to recognize, or we all recognize a Tarantino film. And it is on page. He's a brilliant writer, so full of character description, richly layered with, all kinds of incredible details, which really helped creating a presentation.
Well, let's talk about the year 1969. So Vietnam, post-civil rights, there was a lot happening in 1969, I remember. And I also remember how important clothes were. It identified us. It was who we were. It was everything to us. But it was also, it kind of ran the gamut. Some people were sloppy hippie-typey clothes and others really dressed up. So talk to us a little bit about when you first saw that script, dissecting it, researching, talking to Quentin. Like, do you lay it out in pieces, or did you immediately have a sense of what you were going to source?
Well, you're absolutely right. At the center of our story, it's about a changing culture. I was raised in the Bay Area with social activist parents who were protesting at the front lines, civil rights, and then the Vietnam War was on the shoulders of my parents at many protests. So I grew up with kind of a Bay Area view. My my grandparents lived in LA, and our story is so I would go to Los Angeles and have this experience of Los Angeles as a 7-year-old in 1969, or 6-year-old, and I'm the exact same age as Quentin, and Quentin grew up around Los Angeles, and so I really related to this emotional quality of what people have called a memory film for Quentin, and I really got it. I got that. LA, the story that we're telling about changing Hollywood is very different than San Francisco in 1969. This was about, it wasn't about social activism. It was more about, our film is more about the changing culture. And yes, costumes, I knew this was an incredible opportunity to tell this story visually, because I believe costumes create visual clues. We create character, and then we help move the story along. So here, whether it was, conservative Musso and Franks, hip Hollywood, Roman Polanski, Sharon Tate, all these biographical, real people, Bruce Lee, Mama Cass, and then Spawn Ranch and the Manson family, again, real people, real events. And then at the center of that narrative is Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth, who are fictitious characters, but kind of an amalgamation of guys at that time who are struggling to be relevant in a changing culture. So I knew that the costumes were going to have the opportunity to reflect the culture of all these different kind of tribal ways that people wear clothes, so that would help tell the story visually. I always think if the sound goes out in the movie, hopefully the costumes can help tell you when, where, and who these people are, and expression of their identity.
Well, that's true. If the sound goes out in the theater, you can still get a sense of what you're watching. Yeah, that's good.
And hair and makeup, of course.
And hair and
partners. No, well, we're symbiotic. We work together.
Yeah, I want to ask you, you work with I imagine you would work with cinematographers. You would probably work with everybody. Same with Maya's. You don't just work in a silo. It all centers around.
Oh, no, it's wholly collaborative. And I have an incredible department, 20 people, so that would grow to 30 people depending on, a day with 1,000 extras on Hollywood Boulevard. So, it's a team of people that you empower to help tell the story visually.
So you got a little shout out there. Brad Pitt, when he won his SAG award, he mentioned about the bare feet. Is that like a costume or not, the idea not to wear shoes?
It's a Tarantino-ism because Quentin's known to have a bit of a foot fascination in all his films. For the fans who know, I knew that one of the great things about working with Quentin is that oftentimes as costume designer, of course, we're dressing, creating the costume and the character head to toe, but you don't always see it. It's not always photographed. So I knew how important the shoes would be in this film because Quentin has a lot of shoe shots and bare feet.
I love it. All right, last question. What's the one piece that you got and you're like, oh my God, I'm so excited about this. I can't believe I found it.
Found. most of the principal costumes were made. Let's see, finding a piece. Well, the snakeskin coat, the python Ozzie Clark coat that Sharon Tate famously wore to the Rosemary's Baby premiere in Paris, we wanted to recreate, and I scoured vintage dealers all over the country and in England to find this Ozzie Clark coat and was unable to find it. So we recreated it in non-snake, in faux snake. But I did find, actually I think it was a dealer in Santa Barbara, it'd be amazing if she was here, a two-piece that was similar. So I couldn't afford to buy it, but I saw pictures, so that really helped guide me. But in terms of pieces that I found, like,
Well, I was only thinking that crazy belt buckle.
Oh, there is one, the belt buckle.
The belt buckle.
Yes.
Because it was so huge.
Yes, thank you. Oh, gosh, thanks. So the belt buckle that Cliff Booth, Brad Pitt's character, wears, I found in the bottom, by chance, of a box at at Warner Brothers Costumes, and it's a stuntman's belt buckle. And I had since learned that was something, if you were a stuntman, you could order one of these buckles. So that became kind of a talisman for Brad and me and Quentin. And I would say the other thing would be Deborah Tate. Sharon Tate's sister was a consultant on our film, and she was kind enough to loan some costume jewelry that belonged to Sharon that Margot wore. That was pretty insignificant. It wasn't like beautiful jewelry, it was just some rings, but I really believed that this could be a wonderful talisman for Margot to access the character. Nobody had to know about it except for Quentin, Margot, and I, and they were game, and just to remind ourselves
really
that we're
nice.
telling the story of a real person.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's good. All right. Yeah, that deserves.
Thank you.
I like it. By the way, I missed all of that when I saw the film the first time. But the second time, I was able to go back and notice a lot more, like the belt buckle.
I
the crazy
recommend
jacket.
everybody see the movie more than once,
Yeah.
and it's in theaters again.
And there you go. With sound, hopefully. Huh? Okay. All right, Regina, let's talk about Irishman. All right, set decorator. Tell us about the process and the research that maybe you have to do, because it was a massive, massive project.
It was a massive project, and we usually start, well, the process for me usually starts with breaking down the script and meeting with the production designer, Bob Shaw, and going over things, because he and Marty meet, and Marty is very, he gets down to the nitty-gritty, and he explains things, and he has a certain way he wants things to look, and he references different movies and different photos and everything like that. But our process starts with going over the script, and like I said, and meeting with Bob, and then we had to break down we had 200 sets, 298 sets that we had to do. So it was really hard.
Wow.
In the beginning, our set list, I think, was like 8 foot long in the office. So breaking down all of them at once, really hard. So we had a lot of hotels. We would basically look at the hotels and what locations they were at. Some were in Detroit, one was in Miami, what time periods they were in. We would go about looking at different magazines and photos from the time period. Again, everything would go back to Marty. Villa Roma where a lot of the scenes took place, that was a built set. Marty at first wanted to find a location for that, but there was no way possible that we would be able to film in a location for 10 days. So Bob convinced him that we should build this. And Marty, he was a little bit weary that we could pull it off, because he wanted something to feel really real and feel like it was, standing for 50 years or so. So a lot of work went into that, but we took a lot of research from old restaurants, and bought old booths and furniture, and made it the way it should be.
Because you have to make that booth look like it's 50 years old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So doing all that and putting all of the history into it is, a hard thing to do.
Talk about, didn't you do the last Howard Johnson's?
We did. So the Hojo's, that was basically a like Motel 6 or something in New York, and that whole place was, the exterior we redid. We found, well, actually, the location department found a pool that was, it was, honest to God, with mattresses stuffed in it. I mean, the whole back of that, of the hotel that we shot at, had to be totally redone. And when Bob said, oh, this is where our, the actors will be sitting here, and this is where they'll be having their drink, and they'll make a phone call across the way, I think the rest of the crew just sat there on the location scout saying, really, how are we going to pull this off? But we worked for weeks on that, and turned the pool into a working pool, cleaned it all up, and it just looked amazing when we were done.
Wow.
But then the interior of the Howard Johnson's, I mean, we built that, the little coffee shop.
Right.
That was all built. It was built on stage. We built the Howard Johnson's motel room, another set that was fun to do, and that was we found a lot of great research on all the Hojos from back then, and I think I scoured eBay and Etsy and anywhere you could possibly think, and I bought every piece of Howard Johnson's china that I can find, and every Howard Johnson's ashtray.
And then what happens to all this stuff? It just goes into the big warehouse of Martin Scorsese's?
We had so much stuff left over at the end of the movie that I have to say, some of it was taken over and acquired by other jobs, period jobs that were coming through.
Right.
Some of it we donated, or, sold, but it all went to really great homes.
Yeah.
We had tons of it.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So is it going to be, so your next project, obviously not going to be as massive as this project?
It's even bigger, I think.
It is, because I was wondering, what do you do when you do this? How do you come down?
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest project I had worked on before, and Bob, Bob also. So the next project we're doing a show called The Gilded Age, which is the prequel to Downton Abbey, and it takes place in 1880s New York City, where it's basically a story about the Astors, the Vanderbilts, and our stage sets are massive.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're in pre-production right now. We start shooting in about 8 weeks, so I'm a little stressed.
You can't even use your Hojo's china.
No Hojo's china for this place. No Hojo's china at all.
This is terrible.
This is all really kind of top of the line stuff where, the budget just makes me cringe because
Yeah, I imagine.
the hardware, everything has to be really specific and custom made, and everything has to look brand new and
Right, in 1880.
1880.
So Regina, question, going back to the Irishman, how many people were on your team?
So on my team, it was myself. I had 3 assistants, and once in a while I would have a shopper come in and out. And I really did have a small crew as far as my department itself. I mean, I did have a lead man. My set dressers at certain days of the week, I had between 50 and 85 set dressers a day, because we were building sets, we were dressing sets, we were taking down sets, so it was just massive. But my team that worked in the office with me, getting all the sets done and getting them prepared, I have probably a smaller crew, and for me, I think that works better because it gives me more time to focus on certain sets and do certain things myself, other than it just takes, for me, if I feel like it takes more time to tell 5 or 6 people what to do and get them going. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I do, because then you have
it's just easier for me to be more focused and
and know that they understand your shorthand.
Yes, and I'd like to be very hands-on, and I'm a little bit controlling with the way the sets look. I'm not going to lie about that, but
I think that's a good quality to have.
It ends up working well in the end.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I imagine you'll take that crew with you to next.
I do have some of my crew with me on this job, so. It's good to have also. I have a lot of good people that I work with that I continue to work with over and over again.
Got it. Well, we're going to go from the Irishman to American Factory. So, Julia, for those that might not have seen it, would you mind giving just a quick 2-liner about this? I know you saw the clip, but this documentary is very layered, so tell us a little.
I'll just give the setup.
Yeah.
So the General Motors abandons a factory in my hometown, Dayton, Ohio. Years go by, raccoons move in, homeless people move in, it's rusting, and we hear, wow, the factory is going to be bought. We're going to be manufacturing again in Dayton, Ohio. It's a Chinese entrepreneur, billionaire, who bought the plant, who's going to bring over hundreds of Chinese workers and hire thousands of American workers to work together. Complications ensue.
That's right. Great description. Yeah. Complications ensue, to say the least. Fascinating, though, how that works. Unlike KITBULL, where you have an unlikely pairing and then they all live happily ever after, right? There's a lot of things that happen. But I want to talk specifically, Julia, about, because I was fascinated, when the hundreds of Chinese people came to Dayton, they left, many of them left families behind, so they didn't see their children for 2 years.
Right.
They didn't speak a word of English.
Right.
And the culture shock, not to mention the food in Dayton, I imagine there was probably one Chinese restaurant, right?
There were none.
There were none.
Well, there was one. They didn't like it.
I'm sure.
They built one, though. There's now one on the factory premises. It's a really, really a good Chinese restaurant.
I bet. Yeah, I would think. So they come over and they do this. It was like an honor for them to come over. Am I right in this?
Yeah, these were the people who'd been with the chairman, Chairman Zhao, the billionaire, the person who built the factory up from nothing. They were the 20-year veterans. They were like the best. Most of them never went to beyond high school, let alone, not knowing English. And if you think about it, they got on a plane. So there were hundreds. Their visa situation was not exactly kosher, a lot of them, but, we don't get into that in the film. They get on a plane in a southern province, small town, small city, Fuzhou, China. They get off the plane in Dayton, Ohio, having never been to anywhere. And they're put up in sort of apartments, a whole bunch of people in one apartment. They're picked up every morning to go to work. They're 12 hours away from their families in terms of phone calls. Right. There's so much that they don't know. And they're kind of tossed in. Now, in the film, one of the early scenes is when they had every other week a kind of cultural training. And this particular one we filmed is about how to think about Americans. If you've seen the film, it's very funny, actually. But we put that early in the film because we wanted the audience to think about the fact that, we have a culture, right? We didn't want you to think the Chinese are the other. They have a weird culture. We have a culture too, and they think it's pretty weird, actually. And when you go, which we did, we had 5 cinematographers and we were in there for 3 years. When you hear these cultural presentations, they did one about guns. They did one about women in America. They did how to do your taxes. Lots of stuff. You realize, oh yeah, from their point of view. Though the one about unions was really interesting. Anyway, I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, you did. And then did you bring, I think I read that you actually brought on some Chinese field producers and producers to help bridge the gap.
They were essential. They were so essential. And it took us like a year to realize it because at first we had made the last truck and we live in that town, which is about the closing of the plant. In fact, the opening scene of American Factory is footage from archival footage that we shot from the last truck. So our hearts were with the blue-collar workers. And we kind of thought we'd be making a film about what it was like for Dayton, Ohio, to welcome hundreds of Chinese folks for the, just all the things involved. We thought it'd be a cultural film. I'm sorry, what was the question again? I get wrapped up in my own stories.
That you brought Chinese producers, field producers.
Oh, for the field producers, of course, yeah. Well, they were all women. There were 7 Chinese field producers. 2 became co-producers because they started coming to Dayton for once a month. And they taught us so much about, they had us read books, they had us read articles. They were all born and raised in China. They were not just bilingual, they were native Chinese.
That was important.
And a couple of them flew over from China to be part of it. Mijie Li and Yichen Zhang were just completely essential. I mean, if you think about it, we could not speak to the Chinese workers. We just couldn't. I mean, as much as we even tried with a translator, It was not the same as someone who was Chinese sitting down and talking to them at dinner or at lunch.
Right.
And it just completely changed things. So they educated us, and they opened the doors to really communicating with the Chinese workers. They came with us to China, you know, there was a team of us who went to China for the film.
To see the plant? To see the plant
and to see what that city, it's like a mid-sized Chinese city, kind of like Dayton. But you know what? We completely got why they did not want to be in the U.S. I mean, we kind of thought, like, you know, at first, oh, wow, they're coming to the U.S., they're going to want to live here, they're going to love it. They did not. And when you go to China, and you go even a small city in China, like Fuqing, it's so lively. The restaurants are open all night. The street life is amazing. People are out and about. You go to Dayton at 6 o'clock, you know, everything closes up, except for the malls.
Right.
I mean, it's just a very less vibrant life. And so they wanted to get back.
Right. I imagine they were like they missed the frenetic energy and also people that they could communicate. It must have been lonely. Yeah.
Yes, they were
really
mostly
lonely.
men living together in small apartments they didn't understand about shower curtains. They didn't know where to shop. You know, it was just a really, really different life for them. Yeah.
So let me ask you this last question about the Obamas. So for those that may not know, the Obamas started a production company at Netflix called Higher Ground, and American Factory was, if I'm not mistaken, the first project that they took on. So do you remember that first meeting with them? No kidding.
Obamas are great.
And when you met with them, was it both of them? Was it one of them? Was it phone call?
Both of them.
Both of them?
It didn't start with the Obamas themselves. It started actually 1 year ago, like today, I think, at Sundance, when we had a bunch of pitch meetings. We were lucky that we had, you know, it's the only documentarian here I can say, we get pitch meetings too. We have bidding wars occasionally. We had a pitch meeting with Netflix. In the room were like 25 people, and 2 of them were from Higher Ground, which we didn't know what it was. And after Lisa Nishimura, who's incredible, you know, head of the documentary side and the music side, gave us an amazing pitch. She introduced these 2 women, Tonya and Priya from Higher Ground. And they started by saying, well, I wanted you to know that the President and First Lady saw your film a couple days ago. And I think that's the last thing I heard. And then I kind of phased out, really literally, and then they started saying, POTUS said this and FLOTUS said that. I realized that is who they were talking about. So it all happened at that meeting.
Right.
And then we actually met the Obama, that was in like January at Sundance, right? And we signed on with Netflix and Higher Ground together. And then we met the Obamas there's a little movie, I don't know if you've seen it, on Netflix, where Steve and I, my partner, Steve Bognar, sit down with the Obamas, and it looks like we're drinking coffee and having a good time, but actually there's like 5 cameras, and the whole place is like Secret Service has like blocked off the whole place, and we're drinking water out of a cup. But anyway, we sat down for like 45 minutes and had a real talk, and it was recorded, and now there's a little movie of it. And the Obamas were fabulous. They, you know, Barack, oh, we're not supposed to call him Barack. The president walked in and was like, how's everybody doing? What's going on? And he introduced himself to the whole crew and to us, and he was just very loose. And the First Lady, also beautiful, very elegant. But you know, she's from, like me, she's from a working class background. They're from humble beginnings,
right.
Both of them, which I so admire, you know, who they've become.
Right.
And the fact that they would embrace a film basically about workers, that they would want that to be. And their new film, Crip Camp, was a smash hit at Sundance 2 days ago.
Crip Camp premiered a couple nights ago, and
Yeah.
it just looks amazing about this kind of camp for, they call it Crip Camp, but it's for disabled kids. And how
went
they get
on
together.
to form the Americans for Disability Act.
Yeah.
When they grew up. That's the story.
I love it.
It's
so not
amazing.
even once did you slip and say, hi, Barry? No? Not even,
We
not
were
once?
instructed not to call them Barack and Michelle.
Oh,
So we
gosh.
called them President and First Lady.
Oh, my gosh, all right.
But I will say, when he signed autographs, he signed it Barack.
He did.
And so did she, Michelle, yeah.
I love it. All right, well, now we are going to go to the other side of the pond. We're going to go to Poland. And so we have Aneta, who, so Aneta, this Corpus Christi, first of all, congratulations on being nominated for Best International Film. It used to be called Foreign Film, and now it's International Film. Yeah. So I'm curious, where were you when you found out? Were you surprised? Because this film had been going to festivals, but where were you when you found out the news?
Well, the whole film crew, excluding the director and the main actor, because they are still in Los Angeles. We were in Polish Film Institute because we've been asked by the Polish Film Institute director to join them during this information. And actually it was a huge bunch of us because me, my partner, Leszek, 3 actors, Ania, scriptwriter, quite a big crew. And then I went there and I thought, shit, what are we doing here? And which stairs to use to escape if it's going to be no nomination, because it was a small percentage that we can do it. And yet, the Polish Film Institute made the huge deal out of this. So it was only 2 lifts, so we didn't know really, and a 6th floor. So jumping wasn't easy. And I don't remember much, as you said, Julia, because they said Corpus Christi as a first one, right? Because of C on the beginning, nothing else.
Right.
But I remember Corpus Christi, and I don't remember anything else.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, I know, and especially because you were kind of the underdog, because everyone was Pain and Glory and Parasite and other films, so it was especially important.
Well, you see, the day when we had this nomination, well, the dream was to be shortlisted, right? Because we got the Polish nomination for the Oscar, the Polish candidate, in September. And it was some kind of dream to be on a shortlist. And then later on, because it's such a strong year and such a huge competition, so we never ever thought that, small film from Poland, talking about your sets. So, yeah, it's not this amount of money, even the whole film was probably 1 set of Irishman. So then I thought that, and especially that, it's lovely because Andrzej Wajda, Agnieszka Holland, Paweł Pawlikowski are huge names, and yet Janek Komasa is well known in Poland only. You probably don't know about him, you probably don't know about us. And we made a small film about the simple story, quite universal one, and here we are. We are surprised, all of us.
It's pretty good. I'd say so.
The shop.
Well, and so this idea of fake priests in Poland, it's a thing. I think they do it for financial security, maybe for social status, but how did you get to this film, and how did someone decide we're going to make a film about the fake priests?
Well, the thing is that, coming from a very Catholic country, it's not so easy to make this kind of movie. Because, to be honest, there are 20 people a year being caught pretending to be a false priest, and exactly because of money. So they're doing this to steal some money, to get money out of the people. And the main story, we didn't base on the true story. We based our story on the character, which Mateusz Pacewicz, the scriptwriter, met years ago when he was writing his article for the newspaper. But it was a little bit different story, then we added some to this. And Janek Komasa, the director, he met with Mateusz and Krzysztof Rak. Krzysztof Rak, he's a very well-known Polish scriptwriter. And they created what they created. And at some point, Krzysztof Rak decided that he would like to produce it. And thanks God, we've got a friend together. And this friend of mine and Krzysztof, he told him, Krzysztof, don't do it. You don't know how to produce. You know how to write down the scripts. So don't get involved into all this money issue and call Aneta. So he did. Well, we had a meeting a few days later when we read the script. And that's how we decided to go into the story. But as I said, being from the Catholic country wasn't easy because you see, we didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and we didn't, thanks God.
Right.
But the thing was that in the beginning, when we were telling that it's a false priest, so we were going through all this, sacrum profanum, etc., that, you shouldn't do it, it's a sin, etc., etc. So it wasn't easy to get into some churches, but we managed.
Yes, you did. Well, for those that haven't seen it, please watch it if you can, because it's fascinating. And the lead is just can't take. It's like he's like reminding me of. I can't think of him. I'll think of it in a second.
But I need to tell you something, because due to be on
Aaron Paul.
Well,
He looks like
yeah.
Aaron Paul.
When we got the, when we became the candidate, we had to find the American distributor.
Right.
And he wasn't trusting so much in us, really, in the beginning, because obviously, you know, it was a small film. But it's gonna be international distribution. I mean, the US
Right.
distribution from February. So, yeah,
good.
hopefully you will get the chance to see it.
Great. All right, now we're going to hair. We're going to go to Morgan. So, first time you read the script of Bombshell,
Yeah.
I'm curious, did you have the job, or were you still deciding whether to take on the job? How did it come to you?
I did have the job by way of Jay Roach, the director. He and I had worked together before on a project called All the Way, which was a film that Bryan Cranston played LBJ. And working with Jay it's just really a really special, working with him is really special. He's very considerate of each artisan and their crafts, and very respectful. And so I had the job that way. Yeah, so when I read it, I did have it.
And just to add to what Morgan's saying, when Charlize sent the script to Jay Roach, well-known director, and said, what do you think of this? I'm thinking about doing it. And he read it in one night, fascinated by it, got back to her and gave all kinds of notes and feedback. And then she said, why don't you do it? And he was reluctant at first because he wasn't a female. But she convinced him he was the right person for the job, and certainly he was. And I was, and I've had the pleasure of talking to him a few times, and he really gets women.
He's very thoughtful and very in tune to finite parts of a person, and character. And he's very relatable. Like, you can have a conversation with him and feel like you're heard. And he's just a very perceptive, very intuitive guy.
Yes, I would agree. So now you read the script, you see all the characters, and you notice probably there's one commonality between the Megyn Kelly, the Gretchen Carlson, and Kayla, who's played by Margot Robbie, who's a composite. And they all have blonde hair. But it's so distinctive. And tell us a little bit about because the hair defined the person. And you began to see the differences, particularly with Megyn Kelly, as her hair changed as the film went on. So tell us how you approached it, how you decided who, colors, wigs, real hair, all of it.
Right. I'd say that probably just the first thing that stands out to me when you ask me that question is that when you read the script, and I wasn't a Fox News watcher, so, I know.
I know.
Well, but we are familiar with these people, these real life people,
Right.
And certainly I knew who Megyn Kelly was because of the presidential debate.
Right.
And the infamous with Trump. And so I think in reading the script, the thing that first was coming at me was it felt quite dense of characters that were real people, that were, people watch TV, people are so familiar and comfortable with people they see on television, more so than film, right?
Yes.
So they feel more at home and relatable somehow. So I felt that everybody would know who they were. And I think that what I noted about the Fox world was, of course, everyone's kind of blonde in their portrayal. And when I went to see Jay at his offices, he had this image, and it was from some article or something. It was from a computer thing where, you Google something, it's like blondes of Fox. And on the wall was this image that had 9 women across and 9 women down, completely filled. And each one was a different newscaster or whatever of a representative of Fox, and they were all blonde. And it was articles that had been written a few years back that were about how Fox portrays or has 98% of the women that are on camera are blonde. And it was this very, in looking at the image, they all looked exactly the same. And you could begin to look at them more closely and realize that there were nuances, but what were they? So when I looked at the script and you see these 3 females telling the story, 2 of whom are real, where we are aligned with what people have seen really have seen on camera, whether it was the presidential debate or whether it was a morning show with Gretchen Carlson, like whomever, you know, these were things that we were already attached to. So Kayla was the opportunity to take a character that was an amalgamation of people, not portraying one in particular. And she allowed us to tell their stories, the women that had been at Fox, in a short time frame of the storytelling. So when I looked at the blondes, I felt that Megyn Kelly, Gretchen Carlson, and Kayla represented 3 different kind of like time eras. Not necessarily that they were different generations, but different generations on television. So you had Gretchen Carlson, who was the earlier portrayal, who was a Miss America, who kind of came of that and came of the hard helmet hair and a very specific look, you know. Right. And then you have Megyn Kelly, who was a more like contemporary. Yeah. And what we had seen her look like. And then Kayla became the character that was representing like younger people watching, more right-wing conservative YouTubers watching, or, you know, being able to relate to her.
The makeups, you must have worked very closely, obviously, with the 2 people that did the makeup, because when I first saw the film, and for those that haven't seen it, it is when I was watching it, I first thought, what did they CGI in the real Megyn Kelly? Like, this is weird, because it is incredible how much Charlize becomes Megyn Kelly. And so I give a lot of credit to you and also your counterparts on the makeup side. When you first saw Megyn, saw Charlize as Megyn, were you like, oh my God?
When I first saw it, you mean when we did it?
And you saw the dailies, or I'm sure.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I think as any of us, as artisans, I think you never feel like what you just did is perfect. And I think you are always seeing everything that's wrong, you know? So no matter whether it was the test, where it was a wave of panic, like, oh my God, we're starting in 2 days, it doesn't look good enough, you know? Right. To every day, like you're perfecting as you go along, and you're finding your machine of how it's gonna work and how to make it better and better. And so seeing it on the film, finished, you know, it's like, did they CGI anything on us? Did they have to fix stuff? And they're like, no, we didn't, not really. Great? And then we're like, I love it. Okay, it did turn out good, you know, because the whole time, but you could be nose to nose with Charlize on the day. And you couldn't see. Yeah, because Kazu's work, who I would be remiss without talking about Kazu and Vivian. And Kazu, who won the Academy Award for Darkest Hour a few years back for his Winston Churchill transformation, you know. And it was his prosthetics, what was amazing about the work that Kazu and Vivian did together is that Kazu's prosthetics were placed in planes of the face that allowed the face to still move with finite pores that a woman has versus a man. See, it's done often on film, you know, with men, like I referred to All the Way, where we did Bryan Cranston. And, you know, the face texture of a man is more forgiving for prosthetics because you can allow for flaws and like different things in the skin. But with a woman and the way that they had to build the makeup on top of prosthetics was very progressive and very, very different than anything that's ever been done. And so it wasn't just the placement of the prosthetics and how they would work, but then how Vivian was able to do a beauty makeup that at first she wanted to change often, but in the end you needed to just find what would work to make her look like Megyn Kelly and not like, oh, now she's wearing this shadow and now she looks like this. Just make her face look like her. Right. And then with the hair, we use that to show time passage and change the shape of her face by moving her hair down and making her face have the shape of it. And then all the rest was that.
Oh, it's fascinating. I sing, even like the little crinkles on her nose. Yeah, the best. By the way, I read this thing. It's kind of interesting getting back to the whole blonde of it all.
Yeah.
So get this, 48% of female chief executives are blonde. 35% of female senators are blonde. I don't know what that says, but I think we're still fascinated by the blonde of it all.
Well, I can't even pause, I want to jump on it because, that is the thing about it is that, well, first of all, blondes are it's a very specific kind of thing. If you're a blonde, you want to be blonde, by way of, a blonde that gets roots maybe isn't feeling as much as the blonde kind of thing. And you will always turn your head for a blonde. Like a brunette in the room is stunning, but you walk to a brunette and you see the beauty of her when you're standing there. Mm-hmm. This is obviously broad strokes, everyone's beautiful. I'm just saying,
right.
In a socio kind of study of it all, like a blonde will always turn your head. It's the light, and it's unusual. And a brunette draws you in maybe more when you're standing there. You know what I mean? So I think what was interesting is Roger Ailes, and his kind of creation of what he wanted to do to get an audience and get people to watch. And it started deeper with his work that he did early on with the presidents and, how to sell people. And so he was not only a leg man, but he was like blonde hair, more hair. And it's like, it was such a heightened sexual version of women. And he overtly sexualized all of his women. And that, the directive that he gave, whether it was the costume that they would wear on camera, the wardrobe that they would wear on camera in his case, or showing more leg, the lucite desk so you could see the leg, the blonde hair, more blonde, lots of extensions, nothing blended in. Like it's not supposed to look real, it's a Barbie doll. That's why Kayla, when she has her transformation, you see her, she looks like a Barbie doll.
Right.
Like there's 3 sets of lashes, there's 24 wefts in her hair. A normal woman, if you're gonna plump your hair, has 6. I know that sounds funny to anyone, everyone's blank.
Right.
But that is a big difference. That is a lot of hair.
That's a lot of hair.
It's so not real, Who could keep that up? What?
I can't even imagine.
No. So, it's that overtly sexualized, and I'm not surprised.
Right.
Because a blonde will turn a head. You look.
You do. But also as women, from, as you mentioned, Barbie dolls, from a very young age, we're playing with the blonde Barbie doll. I mean, she has her friend that has the brown hair, but she's the friend.
Yeah.
Right.
And also the Kate, she's
what was
the
her
friend.
name? Midge. Right. Shitty name. Midge, the shitty name.
Yeah, Midge is the shitty name. That's hilarious. It's true, though, Oh, I was going to say something, but I forgot.
I got it.
Marsha Brady.
So much I got to think about. This is too much.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. This movie is just great. So many, again, I also saw this one twice and saw a bunch of stuff that I hadn't seen the first time, so.
Yeah, it's a little rabbit hole of what I felt was like a subculture that's not subculture at all. It's
Right.
There are a lot of people living by the Fox situation.
Yes.
And it was really what at first seems like no big deal, how we are brainwashed into thinking that that's kind of normal, It really is crazy.
Because think about it, that's all a lot of people watch.
Yeah, I know.
So that's it. So they think that the news is normal, the way those women look is normal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
that
Margot
everyone
Robbie
has a lucite desk.
Yeah, and Margot Robbie has that scene in the bathroom where she has that little breakdown, and she's like, we are Fox News, it is, she's just representing that culture that lives by it.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Water. Okay, I have to go to, now I want to go to JOJO Rabbit. Yes. Maez. Such a great film. Congratulations, by the way, on this. It's just for those that have seen it, you understand it's a very special, special film. But talk to us about you as a costume designer, some of your challenges, and then especially how you approached Scarlett Johansson's character, which is so pivotal.
Yes. How I was approached to the project, it was through Taika Waititi. Had worked with him before on a movie called Thor Ragnarok. It was very, a funny take on Thor, and it was successful. We worked together for a year, and he went on to do other kind of small projects, and I did too. And then he started, JOJO Rabbit was a project that he had been developing with Chelsea Winstanley and Carty O'Neill for about 10 years. This movie is being produced by Fox Searchlight. They usually do kind of like niche kind of projects. Mm-hmm. And when Taika called me and I read the script, I said, yes, I immediately in. I know this is a smaller movie coming from another movie that it had a lot more money. I had to figure out a lot of things because the money wasn't enough to do, armies. We have lots of armies. We have the Hickinbotham, we have all the different costumes, many changes on the main characters. I figured it out because I had to make it work. I had to really make this movie and make it the way it should be looking. For my part, what I wanted to add to the costumes was a little bit of project poetry into the costumes, and also go very deep into every character and give it an angle that the audience will really believe and feel. I like costumes that don't look like costumes. I like all the costumes that I create. I like them to be part of the character, like integral. Like if they have something that has been very loved by them. In this case, Rosie Belzer, which is Scarlett Johansson. The background of the character in our minds was this eclectic lady that perhaps hung around with iconic people from 30s and 40s, like Elsa Schiaparelli, right, and Le Sorelle Fontane, and Ferragamo, and in the good times of her.
Well, she's very stylish.
She is,
considering,
because,
yeah.
And her house is too. Mm-hmm. And this is when, Regina would agree with me when I started to see all the sets of that Rob Vincent designed for the movie. I said, oh, so she has money. Uh-huh. Yes. So I
also,
yeah.
You put her in slacks, in pants.
Yeah.
Was that, and that said something a little bit rebellious, or
no,
what did that say?
This is pants started to be, women started to wear pants in the 40s. It wasn't a super common thing to do, but it was, I think a sign of starting to be empowered. And this helped me to develop the character too. When we see Rosie, she's a part of the resistance. Mm-hmm. And to be a part of the resistance during World War II was a big thing. You have to do it very in disguise and very quietly. Plus, she was hiding a Jewish girl. So it's extra careful. And having one policeman in her own house made things even more difficult. But right. Going back to the pants, yes, it was something we talked about it with Taika and Scarlett, and we all agreed that she will be the kind of woman wearing pants in those times, and also being very feminine and stylish looking, because contrary of what many people think, that World War II, during the 40s, I'm going to say, things were very gray and green. They were, but fashion and textiles were very bold and very, with many vibrant colors. There wasn't a lot of textiles going on, so there was a lot of connections with Paris, like the wives of the officers that were stationed in Paris or many other places, like in Italy, they will like, spoil these wonderful goods, along with other stuff like art, but they will have that kind of access to it. In the case of JoJo's mother, she didn't, but because in fact all her clothes is very, carefully aged and lived in. So this is something prior to the war. And there was also many slogans during the World War II that will suggest that we should mend and repair, reuse and recycle. All this is not a new slogan that we should all use now, but also it was back then because things...
Because of the war.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
One thing,
yes.
I thought because the bright colors and the costumes and the palette, it offset the seriousness of the film. So you were able to get the whole parody. You noticed that there was the war, and then there was this whole other story.
There are many factors of that. One is because the whole, vibrant look of the movie at the, first part of the film is because we're looking everything through the eyes of a 10-year-old. That was the intention. Through the eyes of JoJo, who, how are the memories of a 10-year-old? They're always vibrant, especially when he remembers something like his mother, his parents, his childhood. It's never like in colors that are faded, like a memory. They are actually, loving memories are always brighter for us. So that was the kind of a poetic, touch we wanted to put on her. And the shoes also, for instance, play a big role in the movie, being a reminder of good times that she perhaps had in her musical theater times.
The shoes, yeah.
The shoes, and then they become the better of bad news.
Right.
When he had to see it at eye level and being confronted with, immediately with mortality.
Right.
And
that was so interesting. Well, I think the way you did it and the colors, and plus you deserve a medal for working with Taika Waititi, who's got to be one of the craziest but brilliant directors around.
He's brilliant,
so
and he's actually very organized. He had the whole movie mapped when he starts. I don't know when he does that because he's always so, he likes to run a set of, being a pleasant working relationship.
Right. That's good.
And that really, he takes a lot more from all the crew and becomes really a family. And going to work becomes fun.
Right.
And also you put more into it because you really can't wait to go back to work and create this costume and that other costume. And
only Taika could make war fun.
Oh,
like
he can, definitely.
Well, now we're going to go to the animated world of dragons. And so, Miss Bonnie Arnold, source material. So for the trilogy, it all started with an incredible woman in England named Cressida Cowell, right? So tell us how you came to find this book, or the book found you, and that first meeting you had to get her to allow you to make that first film and now third film.
Actually, I didn't find the books. One of our, development, the person that worked in our development department at DreamWorks, who does a lot of searches for books, had found the book at a book fair, and brought it to DreamWorks. We were a very small company then. This would have been around 2004, around 2004, I think, 2005, and. The producer, like 3 producers working there. And anyway, I read the book. And I had, at that time, was working on a movie there that I was producing called Over the Hedge. And Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was running DreamWorks, that was his company, asked me, you know, we were talking, it was about 6 months before the movie was, Over the Hedge was coming out, about what I wanted to do next. And I said, well, we've optioned this book called How to Train Your Dragon, and I just love this book. You know, this is something I want to do. But I think you want to get started before I become available, before I finish this other movie. He goes, no, we'll wait on you. So I figure that was sort
That's
of...
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was very good to me. But anyway, they waited on me to start. But the point of it is we based it on Cressida wrote, I think it was like 13 or 14 books in the series, How to Train Your Dragon. But this was, the first film was based on the first book. And the short answer to that question is we worked for about a year or so trying to figure out what the movie story. She writes great characters in great worlds. A lot of it was based on her life experience, about Hiccup and his relationship with his father and relationship with Toothless. But we made a big change in the book in that we decided, in the book, Hiccup and Toothless are both runts. And the directors, the first film, Dean DeBlois and Chris Sanders, said, no. If you're going to have a book about dragons, the boy has to be able to ride the dragon.
Right.
So we made the dragon, we changed Toothless. And so my first meeting, goes back to the answer, is my first meeting with Cressida. I had to fly, I had just talked to her on the phone. And this was, I don't know, for some reason we weren't up to date completely on video conferencing and this and that. I'd only had a conversation with her. I sort of thought she, you know, was completely different than what she turned out to be, but I had to fly over to London, meet with her, and tell her that we were completely changing the main character of her, you know,
her beloved.
Quite drastically of her book. But she was great. She trusted us quite a bit, and we have a terrific relationship with her over 3 films. She's been very supportive. She admits she's a book author. She's not a screenwriter, and she, you know, trusted us a lot to sort of make a movie, a series of movies that would be a story of especially the 2 characters of Hiccup and Toothless and what they go through, but that reflected the integrity of the characters that she created, but a little bit of a different story than the story in the books.
So Bonnie, when Jeffrey said we'll wait and then they greenlit the first one, did you know then you were going to do a trilogy, or did he say let's see how the first one does and then we'll decide if there's a second?
I think it was sort of a little bit, you know, a business decision to sort of say what would the first one, you know, how would the first one do before we would talk about it, you know, have a second or a third. But I think we had a real good feeling, you know, I would say, again, a few months before the first movie came out. Chris Sanders was already committed to doing the Croods project, and that left it up to Dean DeBlois to sort of decide if he wanted to take on, you know, doing any sequels. But Jeffrey sort of tasked us with what might you do if you wanted to do a sequel. And Dean and I discussed it, and Dean thought about it for a while and came back and said, well, if we want to do it, I'd do 3 films about the coming of age of Hiccup and Toothless, and I'd like to age Hiccup up 5 years, like 5 years ahead, rather than just doing yet another film about the further adventures of Hiccup and Toothless. So it really became, you know, Dean wrote the second and third films, and at one point we were actually going to try to make the second and third films together, sometimes like they do in live action, because they would be of the same time, sort of in the same time frame. We kind of knew how we wanted the film to end. We talked a lot about sort of the movies like, this sort of dates me, but Born Free, and the things where, you know, animals, you know, wild animals are actually returned to the wild.
Right.
And we knew how we wanted the films to end, but it wasn't really practical in animation to do it together. And then after the second film came out, we actually had to borrow a lot of things from the original idea for the second and third films, from the third film, to make the second film feel fulfilling. That was one of the studios, the DreamWorks and Jeffrey's mandate. Don't leave us on a cliffhanger, because it's going to be a while before the third film would come out. Make the second film feel complete. We were working on the third, you know, reworking a little bit some things in the third script, and that's when the company was, the DreamWorks was sold to Universal. So it was interesting. You know, I've been on the films for almost 13 years, and 3 films, and we were distributed by 3 different studios. The first one was Paramount, the second one was Fox, the third one was Universal. But the core creative team on the 3 films remained the same.
That's great.
Over those years, mostly a decade.
Aren't you glad that you didn't do the second and third together, because technology has evolved and progressed so much? Were you able to use new kinds of technology in the third one that weren't even around in the first or second?
I'm not sure even the audience, I mean, I'm very proud of how the films look. They look spectacular, and, definitely the third film is the state of the art in terms of, the digital, animation and what we're able to do. And it's challenging. We can just do, more. I think it's more challenging, if nothing else, for the artists. I'm not sure I would like to, I think you can tell the difference between the first film and the third film, way more sophistication. But I think that's also just a sort of tool in the toolbox. I think it's really about supporting the storytelling.
Right.
And challenging the artist to do kind of different things, but make them don't feel like it's too far afield from the first film in terms of its look and its feel, and to take away from anything in the storytelling.
And there's such a throughput between the first, second, and third. You just see all the characters grow up and.
Well, I picked that, it's now, an hour and a half ago, but I picked this clip that we showed today because that was a clip from the third film between Hiccup and Astrid that was actually a mirror of a scene that's actually in the first film. And I thought that was kind of a nice thing that we did in terms of the storytelling, that, when Hiccup is at his lowest, it's always Astrid who can come in and kind of, remind him that he's got real mojo and that he's going to be able to kind of, how are you going to solve this? And Hiccup says, I'm going to do something crazy. And again, it's kind of a bookend to a scene in the first film that kind of makes it work and ends up, them releasing the dragons and those things in the end of the movie.
Am I the only one who cried at the third one?
I hope not.
I
hope we like to say that you have happy tears in all three of the films.
Right.
If we're lucky. So.
That's good. All right, I like that.
Thank you.
All right, Sarah, bring it on home. All right, so there was a great article I read, Washington Post, and the title of it was How One Woman Cast More Than 1,000 Actors in the Marvel Universe. And I thought, God, what a great, how one woman cast 1,000 characters. So take us back to the first meeting, I'm guessing, with Jon Favreau.
Yep.
And he's like, hi, how are you? Because you didn't really know him before, right?
Yeah. I hadn't met him before. It was with John and Kevin Feige, Luis D'Esposito, and Victoria Alonso, who talk about the continuity of a creative team. I've done, when Avengers Endgame came out, that was our 22nd film together.
Wow.
So our directors had changed, and I've been lucky to do a lot of films with John, including Lion King.
That's right. But do you have any idea at that first meeting what it was going to lead to and how your life would change?
No idea. No, it was really just about the film at hand, and as we've heard, we go in, we prepare, and audition, basically. We meet to try to get the job. I have a lot of boys.
Did you bring the magic box of Brill Cream and all kinds of other things?
It's a little bit different because they don't give out scripts. A lot of the Marvel movies are so secret, so you don't really have the advantage of reading a script beforehand. And so we have to kind of use imagination and see if we have a common vocabulary and similar taste, and talk about our approach and work process and things like that. And but I have boys, and we had watched Fantastic Four a million times, and
I
didn't realize, and I grew up on Star Wars movies as well as, foreign films, and I had a very strange mix of films that we watched in my family, so it lent itself to.
I was going to say Star Wars and foreign language films. All right.
Yeah.
So when you start casting, and they're like, well, here's the mystery script, we'll give it to you later. But do you do like, are you thinking actors? Are you writing down characteristics? Are you cutting out pictures in a magazine? Or what's the first thing that you do?
Yeah, every process is completely different one from another, because sometimes, for example, you mentioned 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, with someone like Martin McDonough, who's a playwright. Every word is going to stick and every character is fully formed. On other projects where I'm beginning, it's more ideas about the characters. And so with something like Iron Man, we talked a lot about what were the core essential qualities that we were looking for from the character. What did John want to bring to life? And so with that, it really was, how did John want to approach storytelling? What kind of idea did he have for the film? And how do we energize that and fulfill that vision through the casting?
And then when they cast Robert Downey Jr., was that a bit of a risk because he was
Definitely.
during his bad boy era?
Yeah, definitely. He wasn't known as an action hero. He was an incredible actor, Oscar-nominated actor, but he hadn't done a film like this. And there were concerns about it and questions about it. And as we went through the process, one of the ideas was to have screen tests and just let him test and let the best person win.
And I can't even imagine anyone else in that role now.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It was a really beautiful moment when he came out and started saying the lines as a character. You knew you were witnessing this character being born.
Right.
And it's been incredible to kind of be
And then
on
it
the front
evolves.
lines for that over and over, to hear the words come out of an actor's mouth and you know that is it. We're done. We found it.
Right. But also when you cast someone, you don't know that maybe 4 films later that particular character is going to have a whole other bigger, huger role.
No. Now, because I've been working on these films for going on 13 years, I see what's happening. I understand how important it is, any character that we're casting, that
Could
that
be a
actor
small role
has the
today.
talent and and the ability to kind of go anywhere, take any turn. But at the time when we were first casting Iron Man or Captain America or Thor, I didn't understand how this was going to progress.
Right. So when you're casting, what's one of the biggest challenges? I would assume, other than like a teenager having a growth spurt.
Right.
What else is happening?
I think the thing that's at the same time most thrilling and terrifying is really the unknown. We don't know often when we start a project who we're going to get, who we're going to find. And so you have to have this kind of passion, perseverance, patience, enthusiasm to go where the journey takes you and to trust in that process, that even if you don't quite know where you're going to land, that hopefully through hard work and the process of listening and talking to your directors and really researching, you're going to get there. But it's a leap of faith.
It is, I bet.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a situation where you've been eating and you're like, oh my God, that person is perfect? Have you gone up to a total stranger and said, I want to cast you in a film? Is it just a fantasy?
We came close to that when we were doing a Jungle Book because it was so specific. We needed a kid who obviously was going to have a certain look at a certain age with the right personality, and we really searched far and wide. Is something like that where, putting up signs in restaurants, in dance studios, in theater classes.
Right.
We're really looking. But oftentimes you're mentioning maybe the Spider-Man search, which was a crazy one because we knew we had to reboot a beloved film, a beloved character, make it fresh and make it new. But we also had a practical challenge where we were going to cast Peter Parker to shoot a role in Captain America: Civil War.
Right.
And a year later, he was going to shoot Spider-Man, but the time frame of the film was only a few weeks apart. So when you're looking at a young person, it was really a concern that what if they grow 6 inches?
Right,
It's going to be very hard to sell.
Wow.
Yeah.
But talking about beloved characters, same for Lion King, though, too. People are so
Absolutely.
attached to that first film, and now you're re-engineering it. So do you look at social media? Do you have haters sometimes?
I try not to. I'm very critical of myself, so that's enough. That covers everybody.
You don't have
put
to
a lot of
read
pressure
criticism.
on myself.
You're your own hater.
Yeah, but that was another really fun process because, again, I think because I've been able to work closely with Jon Favreau over several films now, he's incredibly thoughtful about each character, and also with this film, we wanted to both pay homage to the original and make it feel fresh and contemporary as well for a modern audience.
Right.
So we had lengthy conversations. We listened to a lot of different voices. We really approached it as we would a live action film in terms of character and what's the best way to bring this character to life.
And then is there another Marvel? Are you doing, what's next? Black Widow? I don't even know what's
Black
next.
Widow's coming into theaters soon. And then Eternals.
Black
which
Widow, that's
Chloe,
Scarlett Johansson.
Yes.
Okay.
With Kate Shortland directing. We have a lot of wonderful female directors.
Excellent.
Coming out now. Chloe Zhao is finishing the Eternals. That'll come out in the
Chloe
fall.
Zhao from the writer.
Yes.
So maybe next year our director percentage will go up a little bit.
I think it's going to. I think you're going to see that this year. And Destin Daniel Cretton's about to start shooting Shang-Chi, which is the first Asian superhero film. And I've got some smaller films as well. I've been working with John as well on The Mandalorian. It's busy. It's good.
Oh, The Mandalorian. All right. Well, I'm exhausted hearing about this. All right. Okay, so we're going to go into our next phase and wrap it up with our fun round robin. But before we do, can we just give applause to these amazing women and what they've done? And pretty incredible. 9 panelists, 2 directors, an animated short and a doc. 2 costume designers, a set decorator, 2 producers, 1 that specializes in hair, and 1 in casting. I mean, I've never seen such a wide variety of people on a panel, so I'm thrilled. All right, so this next thing is, so we're going to start with Morgan. Morgan, you have to, yeah, it's super easy. Ready? It's fast.
Okay.
You just have to pick a number between 1 and 15.
8.
8. Are you good at pitching yourself?
Myself or my work?
Yourself. Oh, that's interesting. Yourself and your work.
I would say that I can, am I good at pitching myself? I feel like I can look at something and take an immediate, I can definitely take an immediate gauge of what the work is and feel strong about what my opinion is, being considerate of what the director and the actor would have to say about it.
Got it.
But I do think that, yeah, I have a
Okay.
viewpoint that's strong.
So you're good at pitching, because a lot of people aren't. It's not necessarily an easy thing for women to do. You know, so I'm glad that you can do it.
Firstborn, you know.
There you go. Can't beat that.
Bossy.
Bossy. Arianne, pick a number, please.
3.
But don't pick 8.
3.
3. You travel a lot, right?
Yeah.
An enormous amount?
Yep.
Got a travel tip? And don't tell me it's the pillow, because I can't take the pillow on the plane.
Melatonin.
Really? So you just fall asleep and that's it?
Internationally. Just trying to, once you get on the plane, sync up to where you're going.
Oh, sync up
And
immediately
use
to where you're going.
melatonin, yeah.
Right. So I saw this great thing next to the ad for the cat emoji flannel sheets was a eye mask, and it's this new eye mask, and it says, "Wake me up when it's time for food, or leave me alone." So that they fly. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Just saying. Okay, Julia, don't pick 3, don't pick 8. Pick another.
9.
9? 9. Let's see what 9 is. Overcoming rejection. How do you handle it? Or have you been rejected?
Not that much.
Not that much.
I mean, you know, I'm an independent. I do my own work. I don't have a boss. You know, I've been rejected from grants here and there, but what would I do? I would go home and talk to my partner about it, and we'd have a nice dinner, drink a glass of wine, and move on to the next day.
Oh my God, that's great. Exactly right. Bonnie, pick a number.
5.
Let's see what Bonnie got. Oh, Bonnie, this is a good one for you. Uh-huh. What tricks have you seen to keep morale high on the set?
Food and alcohol always work.
Food and alcohol.
Just saying.
Good food, good alcohol.
Being efficient and wrapping on time or wrapping early. Right, gang?
Early. Yes.
Yeah. That's it. All right, Sarah? 2. Worst or best piece of advice you ever got?
Wow, worst or best piece of advice? Gosh, I'm going to get
won't say
sappy.
names.
I'm going to get sappy.
Oh, go get sappy.
Victoria Alonso.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly a piece of advice, but she was, I think, quoting Maya Angelou saying, people won't remember what you say or what you do, but how you make them feel.
That's right.
Oh, that's great. I love that. They won't remember what you say or what you do, but how you made them feel.
Yes.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, Regina,
Oh, gosh, what numbers are left?
just pick a number between
Okay, 11.
11. Because if what topic do you know more about than anybody in this theater?
Set decorating. We know
Yes,
that.
maybe
Howard
set
Johnson.
decorating. Well, maybe not. I'm embarrassed to say this, but maybe everything to know about the Twilight books. I'm embarrassing my daughter now.
That's great. You're a super fan of the Twilight series?
Yes, and I'm not embarrassed to say it.
No, I think you got to own it. Yeah. Are there more, or that's it?
I think that's it.
That's it. You're not rereading them, are you?
I have a couple of times.
Oh my God. All right. Okay, that's good. All right, Aneta?
That's sad.
13.
13. Lucky 13. Oh, Aneta, favorite book or movie that's inspired you?
Favorite movie, Godfather. I know it's coming
Which
from a
one?
long time.
Godfather
I
Part
think
2?
all of them, but 1 and 2, you know.
One
they
and
like
2?
better.
Not 3.
No, not
Not
3.
3, no,
Not
no,
for
no.
the But you know, it's nice to say all of them, right?
I know.
And the book, well, that's a problem because you see, in our company, I'm reading. I'm a big reader. I like to read, so I've got many of them. So giving one is like,
Yeah.
I can't do it really because
funny
you know,
that-
since I was a child,
Funny you say
books are
Godfather.
my best friends.
Because Godfather is, to some, the perfect movie, particularly number 2. So I think, or 1 and 2, so I think that's great. Did you have a favorite movie, Julia? That inspired you?
Bombshell.
Which one? Bombshell?
Bombshell this year, Bombshell, it would be Godfather, and
Right.
Casablanca.
Yeah. I think Julia's a romantic if she's got Casablanca. Rosana?
Hi. Yes, 15.
15. What was your very, very, very first job?
I was a portrait/caricature artist at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas in San Antonio. I was 16 years old, so freshly legal to start working, and I worked in the middle of a quarry, is where the theme park was set, an old quarry in the middle of summer in San Antonio, which was easily over 100. And we only got paid 25% commission at the time, so no wage. So if you didn't sell anything that day, you didn't get any money. So I learned how to hustle.
Yeah. And you were doing the caricatures of people walking by?
Yeah, for customer patrons.
Wow.
And also, it's funny you're from Poland because there is a exchange program right next to us. The photo takers, as soon as you walk in the park, were all these exchange young men and women from Poland. And being 16, I, very much appreciated people from another country and the very good-looking people from Poland. So,
That's
compliments to Poland. Thank you.
I love it. Aneta, she might do your caricature if you ask her nicely.
I know.
She might do it. Mayas?
Number 7.
Number 7. Okay. Lucky 7. What's one thing that motivates you, that you think about every day?
Creativity.
Yeah, that's good. I would imagine all of you feel that way, because they're all very creative, each in your own way, right? Okay, who didn't I do? I feel like I've missed someone. Did I get everybody? Okay. So we have a little bit of time. I'm going to ask the audience. I'm going to take 3 questions, so please make them good. And as you may remember, I brought my gift card from Handlebar Coffee, which I love so much, to the very best question. So let's open it up and take 3 questions, and please make them short and direct it to one person on the stage. And help me out. Anybody have anything?
Over there.
All right, right there. Yes? Speak loudly. Arianne? Did you hear that? It's when, what was it?
Was I in the room when he opened the box?
The box. Oh, when you were pitching, you were there and with the box.
I had the box, I delivered the box, and then waited to see if I could have the meeting. So, and then I got the meeting. Off of the box.
Ah, that's good. Excellent, good question. Because I assumed you were there with the boxes. He was opening and putting on the Hawaiian shirt.
No, but when I did get the meeting, he had the sunglasses, he had everything there in the office, and he had already started taking pictures out of my I made these 2 big reference books and put them on the wall. So I was like, I felt pretty good about that.
That's good. Yes. Great question. Julia, for those that might not have heard it, you've been in the business a long time, you've got great perspective. Think about 70s and 80s versus now, then breaking in the business versus now.
Wow. Thanks for that question. The first women, we were all in our early years making, our own films, documentaries, shorts. I'm thinking of people like Claudia Weil, Joyce Chopra, Martha Coolidge. We were all like young people, kind of women trying to get started. And the three of them, and there are others too, but they were some of the first. You know, Claudia Weil made Girlfriends. I love that movie. And Joyce Chopra made Smooth Talk, which is still one of my favorite films. Martha Coolidge made many films.
Yes. Ramblin' Rose.
Ramblin' Rose, one of the great films of all time.
No question.
She discovered some of the great actors, like Nicolas Cage, from her very first film, which I'm forgetting the name of right now, like Valley Girls, was that hers?
I think it was.
Yeah. Anyway, they decided to try to come out here to Hollywood and, you know, get going, coming out of our own, like, little independent circle. And boy, did they get slapped around. I remember Claudia telling me, she directed It's My Turn, which was a real film and a real fiction film. You know, Girlfriend she made on her own. I mean, as an example, she said, the producer said, well, you can let a woman, take care of the family grocery bill, but don't give her $2 million to make a movie. Stuff like that. I remember being asked, oh God, like, there are so many things, but being asked to like leave the projection booth at Sundance. Well, it was US Film Festival Sundance in like 1983 when I had the opening night film, because the projection was running slow and I could tell right away. And they were like, honey, get out, you know, you don't know, you're nervous, it's your first screening, you know, don't even talk to me about it. In the projection booth of my own film.
Right.
And it was running slow, and they realized it, and by the next morning they'd fixed it. But our film, which was called Seeing Red, back then, 1983, ran slow, like 10% slow. For those women, though, there was no group. You know, there was no real chance for solidarity, which now, two or three decades later, I mean, they went at it on their own, one by one, and they got beaten up a lot, and they mostly got to make like one or two, maybe two features, and then they just worked in TV after that, because that's where they could get work. It's really different now.
Yes, and also with the Me Too movement,
yes.
I had talked about Arianne, but also, Sarah, you're one of the founding members of Me Too.
There were 3 casting directors that were
Is that
invited
right?
to come in.
Because I imagine the casting was so important because the casting couch, so they think, right?
Which is an unfortunate phrase, but we won't go into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's great that you guys are doing it.
I remember, I won't name any names, but I made one fiction film, and it was one of the people who was helping us, a man, older guy, every time we met, he said like, hey, you know, we can get a hotel, or, you know, we can, come on, you know, that kind of thing. And I needed him, because he knew the business, and he had money, and he knew people with money.
Right.
So nothing ever happened, but every single time we were alone, he brought that up. And at the time, I just did not know how to react to that, you know, because there was nobody to talk with about it.
No, that's right.
You know.
So one thing about Bombshell is back in my day when things happened, you're right, you had nowhere to go, no one to talk to, and you were like, but now it's out in the open. And that's one of the best things about it, is you're not alone, and there's other people that have experienced it, and that's a huge sea change. All right, one more question, make it good, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Yes, in the third row. Wait first, who's it to? Pick a person. Oh, that's good. So I'm going to go to, let's see, who did I ask about this? The question is, any advice for young women trying to break into the audience? Bonnie? I'm asking Bonnie because Bonnie worked, the story of Bonnie in Atlanta, Georgia, and working her way up was incredible, with a little bit of help from someone we know and love named Kevin Costner.
Yeah, you know what? I guess when I talk to students a lot now and tell or young people, and I think some of it is, I think, you know, are you talking about already being there or just wanting to get into the business in general?
Ground
just
level.
ground level. Do anything. Do anything and do it well. And I think people recognize that and having an idea, you know, when people ask me, even when I was just starting out, what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, and I told them I wanted to be a producer, and I was, you know, hauling coolers around movie sets.
Absolutely.
But you just have to put it out there that this is what you want to do and this is what you want to be, and, you know, go to, you know, take every meeting, you know, be out there, work hard. I mean, I know that sounds pretty simple, but
it's all true.
That's where it starts. It really does.
And the good thing is today you have seen, if let's say you love fashion and stylist, then costume designer. If you love hair and makeup, look what Morgan's done. If you love producing and you know how to get everything done and handle money and so forth, that's a producer. And then a director.
I would add to that, though, the best people that I've worked with in my department are people that have come from other departments. So being a PA, a general PA, and working in every department you can, everything informs every job, but just being on a film set. So even if you're interested in being an actor, the best directors I've worked with have taken acting classes. I think, you know, everybody, I mean, we should all have each other's experience to be the best filmmakers.
Yeah. I think our field is a meritocracy. I mean, the kind of work that we all do. And I think, I always tell my students who want to work in fiction, get on a set, do anything, get on a set, you know, be the food person, work for free. You're going to have to work for free. Right? We've all done it. We have to work for free. And just be the best. And never give up, never say I have to go home, never say I have to see my boyfriend or whatever. It's like, forget it. You're you know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be super dedicated. And it is a meritocracy, which I'm kind of proud of. That's not true in a lot of jobs in America. Right.
Hard work really does pay off. We're all here, every single person here can attest to that.
I think also, sorry, one more thing. Too.
Please.
I would say, if you F up, if you make mistakes, don't get discouraged by that. I was let go from Pixar in my first gig as a PA because I really sucked at it because I was so passionate about drawing and wanting to make films. And you know, at that time I was pretty young, and I owned that, like, okay, maybe I didn't do my best, put my best foot forward, but I'm not going to let that stop me from trying again. So try to take the pressure off yourself a little bit and let that desire, that fire that's burning in your heart outweigh the critical thoughts, the bad thoughts, the thoughts that say you can't do this, because those thoughts will always exist, even if you're at the top of your game.
Not only in your own head, but sometimes people closest to us will say, what, you can't do that, and you just can't listen. You just have to keep going, right? So before we wrap it up, what have I forgotten? Does anybody have anything they would like to add?
I would like to add one thing. I finished film school, but you know, it's like when I finished film school, I never thought that I'm a filmmaker. I started from the scratch. Right. So this, you know, the knowledge what film school gave me was quite useful. But you know, it's like coming from Poland. I remember when I said to them one day that I'm gonna have an Oscar nomination, and they laughed, all of them, you know, during the exams. But it's like, you know, if you have to believe in yourself. That's something which is very, very important. But you need to start from the scratch, from being PA, from going through all these departments, etc., etc. That's how I see it.
Did we all go to? I did not go to film school.
I did, actually.
I never did.
No, but half did and half didn't, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I said. What my point is that even if you finish film school, you don't know anything.
Right.
Okay? So this is the point.
That's right. Sarah, do you want to add?
Business school.
I was just going to add that I think it's a great time to be a young woman entering the business.
Agree.
In the
I would
time I've
agree.
been doing this 2 decades now.
And find yourself a great first boss, because when you've got a good boss in the beginning, you know, he will show you the way. I had fantastic boss.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have a shitty boss and you can still learn.
Yeah, I know,
bad
but
one,
it's
right?
easier with a good boss.
Sometimes you learn as much from bad ones as you do
do.
from good ones, I'm telling you, like what not to do.
Yeah.
Sarah,
But I just think there's a real openness and a real desire to have more women, to have more diversity, and it's true. It's not even just people talking
Use it to
about
your
it to sound good. Yeah, I
is
spent the
true.
first 20 years really usually being the only woman in the room, the only woman on a set, and actually it was Ryan Coogler in Black Panther when I first walked on the set, and there was a cinematographer and a producer and an AD, and it's not been slow. It's a sea change, and so I think that people are the doors are open, the willingness is there. If you have a point of view, it's a good time to express it and work hard and follow your passion.
I agree. Regina, you agree?
I
better for
totally
women.
agree, yeah.
Yep.
And like Bonnie said, it's all about what you do. It doesn't matter if you're a PA, if you're collecting the mail for somebody. If you're doing a good job, I think people notice, especially in our industry, and they put your name forward, and then you go to the next job and the next job. But it's really good to start at the bottom and just do whatever you do well, and you'll get far.
I love it. Well, please, thanks everybody. Round of applause.